Good morning. Welcome back to For What It's Worth. And it is Sunday morning, and we are in Revelation chapter 7. But before we start there was a detail in chapter 6 that I didn't really get into too much. Quite frankly, when I was recording, I kind of slipped my mind, so I want to go back real quick. The last part of chapter 6 is a great earthquake at the sixth seal. And we have the beginning of sorrows. Many earthquakes are going to happen throughout Revelation. But it took me back to something I've recorded about earlier, and that is the Battle of Gog of Magog in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. And verse 38, or actually verse 19 of Ezekiel 38, the war of Gog and Magog is a war that goes up several nations that come against Israel, and God intervenes and saves them. And what's interesting is it says in verse 8, many days in the latter years you will go up against a land that is restored from war. I think it's restored from the Psalm 83 war, which I think is possibly wrapping up right now with all this war on terrorism after October 7th a couple years ago, that Israel is wiping out its enemies and they will be restored from war in a land that is gathered from many peoples upon the mountains of Israel. And they will dwell securely, all of them. And then it says they will go up against a land of unwalled villages where they dwell securely. And then God says, "Oh Gog, I will vindicate my holiness before your eyes." So God's going to rescue them. And then the next part says, "And on that day there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. And all the people who are on all the face of the earth shall quake at my presence. And the mountains shall be thrown down, and the cliffs shall fall, and every wall shall crumble to the ground. And I will summon a sword against Gog." Well, remember the mountains coming down, the earthquake that everybody will feel. Well, it kind of fits here in Revelation 6. And there will be a great earthquake, and you have the signs of in the sky. The sun becomes black as sackcloth, the moon like blood, and the stars fall from heavens. And then the kings of the earth and the great ones and generals will say to the mountains, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of the one who's on the throne." So what's interesting about all the prophecy is that the book of Revelation does not neatly tie up all the other prophecies that are in the Old Testament and say, okay, well, that happens here, and then that happens here, and then that. It doesn't do that. But this would be a good place to put the war of Gog of Magog, the ending of it, at the end of chapter 6. The reason I say that is because further in Ezekiel, when you get into chapter 39, it goes on to say in verse 9, "And those who dwell in the cities of Israel will go out and make fires of the weapons and burn them, shields and bucklers, bows and arrows and clubs and spears, and they will make fires of them for 7 years," so that basically they're going to take the weapons of their enemies after God defeats them, and then they are going to use them as fuel for fire and energy for the next 7 years. So where would that 7 years fit? Could it be some random 7 years somewhere? Probably not. It's going to be that last 7 years of Daniel's 70 weeks. That it seems to fit there. And it would seem to fit here at the end of chapter 6 before the chapter 7, beginning the 7 years of the time of Jacob's trouble, tribulation, different ways you want to call it. And that takes us to chapter 7. And so after all of those birth pangs and then the accumulation of war and the great earthquake that ends the war, probably the Gog of Magog war here. I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth. 4 corners of the earth is language for all over the world, global. Holding back the 4 winds of the earth, that no wind might blow on the earth, or sea, or any other tree. And I saw another angel ascending and rising from the rising of the sun with the seal of the living God, and he called on a loud voice to the 4 angels who had been given power to harm the earth and sea. Okay, so they are holding back more damage to the earth, and God says, wait, do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. And I heard the number of the sealed, 144,000 sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. People like to take this all kinds of ways. You know, the Jehovah's Witnesses used to think they were the 144,000 until they ended up with 145,000 members. That's not what they're talking about. These are the sons of Israel. Well, a lot of times they say, oh, these are the 144,000 Jews. Wait a minute, they're not Jews. Jews are Judeans. Yeah, the first 12,000 are from the tribe of Judah. They would be Jews. But the others are Reubenites, Gadites, Asherites, Naphtalites, Manassites, Simeonites, Levites, Issacharites, Zebulunites, Josephites, and Benjaminites. Those aren't Jews. Jews are Judean. We like to call anything associated with Israel a Jew, but that's not true. The Jews are Judean. These are the other 11 tribes of Israel. But wait a minute, I thought they were lost. I thought they were scattered. I thought they're done. Well, God knows who are descendants, ultimately, of the other 11 tribes. And they're scattered all over. You could be one of them. I could be one of them. Don't even know it. So God's going to bring back the descendants of the other 11 tribes and bring salvation to them. And these will be sealed. That is, that they will be marked out by God for a special task. So the scattered lost tribes from all over the earth will emerge as God knows their heritage and their lineage. And this happens, I think, at the end of the church age, because the fullness of the Gentiles will have come in, and now Romans 11:25, all Israel will be saved. And this is what is about to take place. So at this point, Romans 11:25-26 talks about how the Jews or the people of Israel and the Jews are in blindness partially, having rejected Messiah, until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in. God has an elect of Gentiles who must be saved, and when the last one is saved, then it's time for the Jews to be saved. So I think we're approaching here in chapter 7 the fullness of the Gentiles. That is why we have this emergence of converted people of Israel. And after this I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes and people and languages, standing before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands. And they cried out with a loud voice, salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. And all the angels were standing around the throne, around the elders and the 4 living creatures, and they fell on their faces from before the throne and worshiped God. And again, we have this doxology, amen, blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever, amen. It's just a beautiful scene that in heaven, as God is unfolding his plan on earth, he's being worshipped and adored for his conquering. And then one of the elders said to me, who are these clothed in white robes, and from where have they come? And I said, sir, you know. And he said to me, these are the ones coming out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and have made them white in the blood of the Lamb. So these people here are people who are coming out of this time of tribulation. Okay, all of these things are going to happen, and they're going to keep happening. These people are going to, how do I say it? It appears as if their souls are dead and with the Lord, or it's a vision of what he will see because they're about to lose their lives and be with the Lord, and we're going to see their souls under the altar crying out for vengeance. So I'm not sure if these have already died in the first, leading up to the first part here of chapter 7, or if this is a vision of those who will now die and come out of great tribulation. So it could be either one, I think. And this is what Jesus predicted in Matthew 24:13, where he said, those who endure to the end will be saved. Okay, and by the way, when they say, the dispensationalists like to say, well, these are tribulation saints, we're already raptured out by chapter 5, and these are just people who get saved during the tribulation. And it's just, they just say that to make it fit their timeline that they want. I just don't buy it. I think these are people who the fullness of the Gentiles has come in or is coming to a close, and these are God's people, church people, who are enduring suffering, and they're coming out of a great time of tribulation, and they never give up the name of Christ, as was exhorted to them in the other previous chapters of some of the churches, like Philadelphia, where he told them to endure to the end and to hold on to his name, that you would be persecuted. A couple of those churches, that was for these people to heed at this coming time. Therefore, they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple, and he who sits on the throne will shelter them with his presence. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them, nor any scorching heat. For the Lamb is in the midst of the throne, will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to springs of living water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Most of the church, most of God's church is already in heaven. They're already there. Last 2,000 years of saints who have gone before us they're already there. So, when they say, "Oh, we already see the church in heaven here," well, you're just thinking the present church, the people who are alive at this time? No, that the church has already been in heaven for the most part. This is the end of it. This is the last of them, and there they will rest with Christ until the last of them are martyred, or until the rapture, before his coming, whoever's still alive. And it's my opinion that we're not at that point yet in the book where we can fit a rapture in. And like I said, the book of Revelation doesn't say, hey, look, this is where this stuff happens that Paul told you about. This is where this stuff happens where Ezekiel talked about. It doesn't do that. It gives you similar language that you can connect the dots and be like, oh, great earthquake, mountains falling, 7 years. Go back to Ezekiel 38. Oh, that matches. That would be a good place to fit this. And that's what really Bible prophecy is all about. It's trying to fit the puzzle pieces together where they make the most sense and where you can be most faithful to the text without, bending and turning and trying to make things fit in what you think it ought to be. Just going with it. and it's a challenge. So that's chapter 7 for now, and see you in the next one.